right, Brutes, week 2 is upon us. James Castro has dropped another potentially long workout on each of us. For some of us, it's going to be shorter than others, to say the least. If you guys watched the update show last night, Dan and Bjorn made that workout just look ridiculously easy. So don't use that video as much of a reference, because literally those guys put on quite the show last night. It was an amazing output of power that you witnessed there, especially with them just getting it obviously last minute and being able to throw down in that garage under those cold elements like they did. So shout out to you two for crushing that workout, because that was very impressive. Now, from obviously the general layout of the workout, 16.2 is opening up with 25 reps of toes to bar. You execute 50 double unders, and then you move on to a barbell, where then you move on to squat cleans, and the weights incrementally go up as the reps incrementally go down. So we start with a lighter weight at 15 reps, then the weight goes up. It's 13, 11, 9, all the way to 7. There's potential 5 blocks to go through, and each one of those blocks is only lasting 4 minutes. So if you don't make it through that next 4-minute block, obviously you're not allowed to continue on, and that's where your score ends there. From an equipment and setup perspective of this workout, it's going to be very simple, right? You need to make sure that you have a bar that is comfortable for you to do toes to bar on, and I mean comfortable by way of grip. If you need to put tape on the bar and you prefer that, utilize it. Make sure that the bar is set up that way. This workout is surely going to be get very grippy. If you have access to a pull-up bar that is less in circumference than one that you're normally used to training on, that may help as well, to take away some of that grip tension. And then even just a quick strategy consideration, that if you guys always wrap your thumb around the bar and feel like it detracts from your grip stamina, consider laying your thumb over top of the bar, or if you're a smaller handed athlete and you don't already do that, consider that for this workout. Obviously, it would be smart for you guys to have 2 jump ropes. Who knows what can happen in the course of a long workout like this, and if you are fortunate enough to make it into some of the latter rounds, the last thing that you want to hold you up is the fact that your jump rope snaps, a screw comes unloose, or whatever happens, and you don't have access to another one that's close to or appropriate to your size. So make sure that you have those 2 jump ropes available. And then lastly, obviously you need your barbell for the cleans and the weights. You need to be the one responsible for setting those up for yourself. So I don't mean loading the bars. Guys, ideally you're going to have a partner that sets and loads the bars for you. That time is going to be drastically costly if you are stuck loading your own barbells, but you should be the one to set the weights out. Not because anyone's going to be looking to sabotage you on purpose. However, people make mistakes, and if you're the one that makes a mistake, at least you only have yourself to blame. So make sure the one that sets up the weights in your area or designated area for your cleans, and then it obviously avoids you chasing different bars around throughout the workout. So one of the options is that you can set up multiple bars, but if you're walking from bar to bar, or you need to travel a little further to get to that next bar, it just is going to increase the time delay of you picking up that bar and executing a clean. So have that in mind. One last thing with the toes to bar, and we'll kind of get this a little bit in strategy, is that if you do have access to a low bar along with a high bar, so if you guys are going to open up with maybe larger sets of your toes to bar, and you're one of those higher capacity athletes that have 50 plus toes to bar in an unbroken set, you'll potentially do larger sets, so you'll want a higher bar. But many of you will want to go smaller sets, and a quick transition to a low bar, a lot like the video we showed last week with the quick chest to bar pull up, could be very viable and very valuable to many of you guys out there in consideration to that. One last thing. If you feel like ankle mobility and your front rack position and the bottom of your clean is the absolute limiter, we're going to go ahead and encourage you to wear lifters. However, we're doing lots of toes to bar in this workout. Lifters aren't light, and if you're doing a ton of them and then a ton of jumping, that does never really help your cause. So if at all possible, work on your mobility and just rock your nanos or whatever flat Metcons or shoes that you traditionally wear for this workout. It will probably help you down the road. Nick, you got anything to mention equipment-wise?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward. Yeah, just make sure you're familiar with your space, and like you mentioned, everything, just kind of go through it and yeah, know your setup.
Sweet.
Yeah.
All right.
Great.
Well, let's talk about the warm-up.
Yeah, and warm-up, it's going to be similar to last week, right? So there's an aerobic component for sure, and there's going to be definitely a muscle fatigue. If you look at toes to bar, I mean, that's a huge chunk of the workout. Plus we have an Olympic lifting right, cleans, right? We got to warm those up, and then there's a high skill component, right?
Yeah.
Double unders. So we'll go into probably more of this in strategy, but you gotta really feel confident in your double unders. So you gotta kind of make sure you grease the wheels there. But basically, what I'm recommending is about 10 to 15 minutes of light aerobic work, right? And ideally, it's going to be on a bike. There's going to be a lot of squatting involved, so we want to kind of eliminate and reduce as much eccentric loading as possible. If all you have is a rower, that's totally fine. I wouldn't recommend necessarily going for a run unless you're super, super efficient at that. Basically, what we're looking to do is just kind of increase blood flow, breathing, right? Kind of grease the wheels. And then I would go into mobility, right? So if you think about the demands of the workout, ton of toes to bar, right? For some of you, it's going to be 100 plus. Warm up the shoulder girdles, right? That's going to be huge efficiencies, things like this. So spend some time. We went over some things last week that help you open up your shoulders. You can utilize that. You can also think about spending some time in the front rack, right? So you're going to have a ton of cleans to go through, and so if you can be efficient, right, improving that front rack position, that's going to help you out in the long run as well. And then I'd just say any kind of specific things that you know as an individual that you're going to have to kind of work on. So for those that have ankle limited range of motion in their ankles, that are looking at wearing Olympic lifting shoes, it might benefit you to like floss those ankles, improve that range of motion, right? Hips, right? You know who you are. You probably at this point you should know how your engine runs, how you're built, limitations in terms of range of motion. So hit those specific spots that you know that you need to hit. And then from there, we're going to look into going to a general warm up, which is basically a little bit of breathing. We want blood flow to the core, and so we don't want to. We're going to walk a fine line between any fatigue that we're going to create in the core and blood flow. So what I would recommend is if you have a ski erg, it's a great option, right?
Yep.
So you're going to be doing some trunk flexion in there, but it's not going to be really at any kind of forceful load. So we're looking at blood flow. Then a good option if you don't have a ski erg is just some sit-ups, right? Ab mat sit-ups. Again, they should be really easy, quick. And then some Russian twists. It's just simple. You don't have to have them loaded. Again, the idea is starting to prime that movement and blood flow. Then you could think about going in some kipping swings. You could maybe think about doing one toes to bar, but honestly, I wouldn't waste them. Just like last week, you've got a ton ahead of you. If you need to do one just to kind of see what your setup is, but really you shouldn't need to kind of get a big set in or anything like that. And then the next thing is double unders, right? So I would suggest getting to the point where you're kind of warmed up and you feel good about your double unders, right? And for those of you who struggle with double unders, it might take a little longer to kind of get into that kind of sweet spot, that zone, right? If your double unders are solid, then that's fantastic. All that work's paid off. But 25 or so, just enough to kind of feel the fluid, right? If you have 2 ropes, I would suggest doing a set of 25, and we're going to recommend about 3 to 5 rounds that we go through this. So think about switching those double under the rope in the warm-up, right? Just in the event that you need to pick up your backup. And hopefully you've used your backup, it's broken in, but just think about that. And then lastly, we're dealing with a clean, right?
Yep.
And so even though it starts out light, and depending on how deep you're going to go into the rounds, I think we're looking at wanting to put a little bit of stress on your CNS, a little bit of load, but obviously not tax you, right? So I think 70% is a really good load to work up to. It should be quick. You should be able to do that within half a dozen lifts. Don't spend more than that.
Right.
And you want to intermix that building on the cleans in what we've talked about in the general warm-up. The last thing I'll mention is just a little bit of sprinting, right? So if you have an Aerosol Aerodyne bike, think about getting on it for about 4 or 5 seconds, total all-out sprint, just to kind of ramp up the system, right? I think getting that CNS fired up will help you once you kind of get into some of the heavier cleans and kind of keep you from from I don't know, getting slapped in the face by like, oh my God, it's like heavy weight. Right?
Yep.
Again, it should just be 1 or 2 touches on that. The warm up, as everyone knows, shouldn't be fatiguing. It's really just to prime you for the workout. So I don't know. Can you think of anything else, Adrian?
No, I think that we hit on all the major points. We're obviously going to provide you guys with a little bit of a screenshot with some of this information, so it'll either pop up after we cover this information or off to the side. But yeah, just think, get warm, get ready to rock and roll. Make sure that any kind of hand care that you are going to need for the toes to bar, make sure you're prepared for that, whether it's wraps, tape, whatever it is that you normally do, continue to go to that, but just make sure that that is something that you consider as well before we get into the workout itself. All right, guys, so now it's time for us to talk a little bit of strategy here for this workout. The fact is, we're looking at different models of athletes within our group and community of Brute, and also even outside of that. Obviously, if you guys are watching this and you're not a part of our community, this workout is literally almost going to be laid onto one side of the tier where you guys are either really excelling at the toe to bar and the double underside, the gymnastics and the monostructural piece, or you're probably going to be really chomping at the bit to hit those cleans and get to a heavy weight on those cleans. And then there are some of us that are mixed and matched in between and kind of a hybrid between the two. But the big thing that we want to consider again this week is, what is your limitation specifically? Looking at this workout from a generality standpoint, like we're kicking it off with 25 toes to bar.
It's a lot of toes to bar.
It's a lot. And there are a lot of athletes out there that could get through 25 toes to bar.
Yeah.
Is that a good idea?
Yeah, I think it brings up a good point, right? So knowing your engine, right? And knowing whether something's a good idea or not. And I think what we've seen, right, so far talking with all the athletes is the toes to bar is actually a bigger metabolic stress than anybody expected, right? Talking to some folks who, have, cleans in the high 3s, who couldn't even touch the 275, right? And that's shocking, right? And so just think about that impact.
Yep.
We were talking about as kind of an over-under strategy, and everybody's different, but if you have 50 toes to bar, think about 7s.
Yep.
If that makes sense. If you have less, then implementing kind of a 5 strategy where you get 5, you rest, 5, rest. And then if you have more than 50 unbroken toes to bar, 10 plus, again, knowing your engine. I think figuring out how deep you want to go into this workout and managing fatigue and toes to bar is going to be crucial. Yep. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think big picture, guys, what we've got to do is almost set a standard. So if you really have the desire or the capacity that you're very confident in of making it to that 275 bar or potentially 315, we've got to kind of look at how we need to manage the time in order to create a buffer for ourselves throughout the workout. If you guys go back again and watch kind of Dan and Bjorn battle through that workout, Dan is literally chipping away and buying himself minutes at a time throughout the first couple rounds, and he's able to do so because he has such a high capacity in those toes to bar. Now, obviously, the majority of athletes in the world that are taking part in this workout aren't going to have that ability. So even a great strategy that I'm willing to throw out there is like, if you take 5 toes to bar and get through them smoothly, rest 5 seconds, you're looking to get through at least that first round of toes to bar in roughly a minute. So if we can do that and then continue on to those double unders and get through those things unbroken, you're looking at a minute 45?
I'd say 45 seconds for those who are fluid, right?
Right. Yeah. So now we're almost 2 minutes into round 1.
Yep, 2 minutes.
And then we've got time to handle the cleans.
Yep.
How that plays out.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing. So in the cleans, one thing we got to think about is obviously the 135s are going to be light, right? Fast singles. There's as you saw last night, there's really no need to touch and go those cleans. I can't think of anybody who should, but fast singles would be appropriate. And the 135 is going to be quick, right? Yep. And as you dig deep into these rounds, 185, you're going to need some rest, right, between those cleans. So you got to take that into account. If you think about 185, you're going to need 20 to 30 seconds. Yep. Under, over, know who you are, between lifts, right? So if you add up those reps, you're looking at 2+ minutes right there. And so you have to actually put that time in the bank from round 1. And what we've kind of found is that round 1 should be 3 minutes or less for you to successfully get through round 2. Now there's a lot of individual factors there, but that's kind of what we're seeing. So take that into like the 225, where you're going to need 30 seconds, maybe 45 seconds rest between lifts. You're going to even need more time. So this isn't kind of a pacing game where we've seen in years past, right? Interval style, where it's like, okay, you got to stop, rest, and then you pick up. The ability and the need, right, to buy some time is going to be huge when it comes into later rounds.
Yeah, and guys, as you know, we have been obviously programming some beep test style workouts. This is a bit different than that even, right? Like we want you to continually consider that we're actually banking time. So it's really, you're making deposits in your future effort throughout this workout. So whereas in a traditional beep test that we had set up previously, where we have a certain amount of work that you have to finish in a particular time and then you get to rest or reset if you get the work done, this is actually where it's like, if you have that capacity, you want to finish as soon as you can to get started with that next round as soon as you can. So where, you know, a traditional brute style approach to a workout is like, be steady throughout, we're surely going to front load our effort here in this workout a little bit on the front side, just to make sure, again, that we're buying ourselves time for, in the future, smaller sets of toes to bar than what we open up at, and then also the longer rest in between those clean reps.
Yeah, for sure. Have you seen anything in your training, you know, training for the games and whatnot, that has been structured like this, that you know, has worked for you?
Gosh.
That's a kind of a big question.
It is. It's a big question. Not off the top of my head, right? Like, because for me, a lot of the stronger workouts for myself are ones where I often take off at the pace that I'm going to try to sustain, and guys take off a little faster.
Yeah.
And then later in the workout, I kind of am able to make up time on them.
Yeah.
But this obviously is something that takes off as more of a traditional workout for time type emphasis. Whereas in the open, and even though we're limited by time here, guys, this needs to be approached more as like, for time, big picture, what is your goal, right? If your goal is 4 rounds, we should honestly approach that outcome as 4 rounds for time, considering how long that 4 rounds is probably going to take you. Because if you start off with that pace, well, I'll make it just 4 minutes, you're never going to make it out of the next 8-minute block or into that 8 minutes, because you're going to need more than 4 if it took you that 4 minutes for the first one.
Yeah, it's exciting, right? This is, I think, a new format. I think it's a great workout for sure.
Yep.
Don't be fooled by what you saw last night.
Right.
And I think that's the one thing that, just from talking with everybody, that's probably the common thread.
Oh yeah.
Is people are way underestimated this workout. And so, you know, that being said, we didn't talk about dumbbell unders, but there's not much to say.
Right.
Either you got them or you don't. Yeah, good luck with those.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's true. Nick said, you got them or you don't, guys. Warm them up well, and let that be a focus of yours. When you step off that toes to bar, I know even for myself, double unders can become a bit of a mindless thing. We've been doing a ton of them in our training, so hopefully you guys feel more than prepared for that. But make sure that when you pick up that rope, you are focused. And what I would encourage you to do is think big picture, like 60 reps every set. Right? Think 60, aim for 60. For me, it sets up more success in making it through 50 unbroken if I aim just a little bit higher in my rep scheme.
Yeah, that's a good strategy.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good luck, guys.